I, like probably many people that are listening, started and still am an independent estate agent. We opened a one-office business back in 1985 in southeast London, and then built our business from there. So we're very familiar with agencies at kind of all sizes up to the scale that we are now, which is 36 offices and various divisions and departments. And so throughout that time, I've remained pretty much hands-on, even in the position that I'm in now, although I have a large operational management team. I'm very close to the front end of the business, as well as obviously making the higher level decisions. So that's kind of what brought me to the point I am now. And then I've had, and I'll hand back to you, Ian, but I've had a fairly interesting relationship with the portal sector generally for about a decade, and what has become an increasingly fractured relationship with Rightmove probably in the last 3 or 4 years. It started with a contact from our Rightmove account manager. We are out of contract. For clarity, and I've always said this, we are out of contract with Rightmove at the moment. And they came onto me to announce that they had some fantastic news. They sensed that we were at the beginning of the whole COVID crisis at that stage, and just wanted to let me know that they would charge me exactly what they charged me last year. Wasn't this good news? Wouldn't have to go through one of those torturous review periods. And they wanted to tell me in person. They don't normally come to me directly, and maybe regret now having done that. At that point, I raised the question. This is now from an Acorn perspective only. I said, given my length of support and the relationship with you, that I was rather hoping this call would have been something an awful lot stronger than that. And at that time, I immediately asked for a 6-month sort of moratorium on tariff for my business. And then the whole thing kind of took off from there. I had a series of dialogues at senior level with Rightmove before this kind of kicked into the public domain, and one of which was for me to give a load of analysis on my business as to how COVID was affecting my business. At an early stage, it had been suggested that this was a blip, or we were going to go into a period that, and these were the words used by them, a period that was going to be similar to Christmas, where there wouldn't be quite the activity, but there'd still be the overarching interest. And from there, that's when I really started to ramp up my request for a moratorium on payment. And that then started to branch out. That's when that went public. We then started to galvanise support from other agents. And I'm lucky to have within my business a reasonable size PR and marketing team. So they jumped on it very, very early. Could see what was kind of moving in the market generally. And as a matter of principle, this is a battle I should have had 3 or 4 years ago on behalf of my business. And so, that's where the whole thing took off from. I think we could all draw a picture really, or write a note very quickly on what we expect from Rightmove. I think everybody in the industry is in the same position. I think we all want that kind of relationship between a major supplier to our business. We want an ongoing working partnership, and we want tariffs and fees that are reflective of the marketplace that we're in and what we do. And that's where this all set off from. And the say no to Rightmove, it's not about forcing any agent to do what doesn't work for them, given their specific demographic, their specific circumstance, and also their contract with Rightmove. But what it does predicate on is saying no, and saying no doesn't mean you have to leave. I'm sure we've all negotiated with suppliers and reached tough points, and we've actually dug in, we've said no, and we're unprepared to move until such time as we see something coming from the other side. Rightmove have succeeded by sort of dividing and conquering all the time. Some of the people that are coming the opposite way, and they don't tend to be within our side of the industry, would like to pick apart the campaign, because they think that if I polarise our supporters, if I was to scream all leave, suddenly we'd polarise our supporters, and it would be irresponsible for me to turn around and say to everybody all leave. Every business has got a slightly different agenda. They've got a slightly different moment that they're at in the cycle. But the common denominator across everybody is they are fed up, and they don't see that they're getting fair value. I want to hold together the industry, whether it be a one-office independent, whether it be organisations like the Guild, whether it be the larger independent agents. I want to hold them together under one message, and I want Rightmove to come to the table. I don't think they'll come to the table on the basis of a union leader representing a whole industry, but I want them to come to the table with some fairly major changes to their approach within the agency sector, some fairly major changes with regards to how they levy tariffs, and that will be in the short term, mid term, and the long term, and that's what I want for them. It'll be then for people to choose what they do. Some have already left. I mean, out of every, Ian's heard this before, but out of every 100 owners that we're recruiting to say no to Rightmove, roughly speaking, 10 owners have already left. They have left pre-March, and they've gone. And some have taken a little bit of persuasion because they don't understand how, having left Rightmove already, they can help us. But I see them as a good example, and I see them as helping our campaign. And then post March the 1st, about 10 in every 100 that are coming on have served notice. Some have been more radical. Some have cancelled their direct debits, etc. Which, again, that's not something I would advocate. That's something that they need to look at hard in terms of where they are with their contracts. And then the remaining 80%. Are promising action, and I think there's a hardcore there of about 75% of the 100 that are waiting to see what happens, and they will determine what they're going to do based most likely on what Rightmove do next. But to get from where we are now, the one thing I'd say to get from where we are now to the utopia, whatever is in your head as an agent, Rightmove aren't just going to do it if we ask them nicely. They're not just going to say, please, would you do this? They're going to have to see that A, we're galvanised, and B, we do intend ultimately to take action. But that doesn't mean anything that's radical, dangerous, or detrimental to our businesses. What might work for me at my scale may not work for somebody else that's got 5 offices or somebody that's got 1 office. And I'm seeing this again with the larger independents that I have spoken to that are above me in size. They are taking similar action with their dialogue to Rightmove. And again, so I think 99% of the industry are pushing for the same thing. The analogy that I kind of give that kind of captures this is, I want to get the foot off of the industry's, the Rightmove foot off the industry's throat. And if you imagine, this came up in a conversation. You imagine you've got a relatively small garden with a dirty, great big oak tree growing over it. Nothing's going to thrive in there. Nothing new is going to thrive in there. And Rightmove have continually meted out punishment to new entrants, or they buy them up. There's no real new blood coming into the tech sector. I've been slightly accused of leaving new challengers in the dark. That's not the case, and I have managed to win the hearts and minds of the new challenger portals, and they're beginning to support Say No to Rightmove now because they see that there's a stepping stone. First step of this is, we need to get back some of our marketing bucks from Rightmove. It isn't just leave at all costs, but what it does do is, if look right now, we've got a 75% discount. That's all of us. We did our pushing. You guys will have pushed. Look at what that release is for us in the short term. At the minute, that release of cash flow is really, really good because we need it for other things. In the long term, that's marketing bucks that can be spent in other directions. And that will allow greater competitiveness. And it's not just Rightmove. Add up agents on with Zoopla, on the market, and some others. The cost per office of this type of marketing is way over the top at the moment and has to be brought back into line for us as an industry. I think it varies from business to business. I think a smaller independent that feels very, very dependent on it is going to have to make a judgment on cost alone. It's going to have to make a judgment on, at what point does that and doesn't that work for me? Is there a point at which, what is the value for these leads? What are we generating from it? And different agents will have different confidence levels about that. But for certain, in terms of straight value for money, that's what this is going to be predicated on. I think a business like mine, we're a big brand in the area. we'll take it on the chin. If eventually my relationship with Rightmove becomes so disenfranchised that we have to move on, we have to move on, and that's it. And I have to look at my offering in my area. There's some very, very strong independents up and down the country that have already left, and they've left on the basis that they don't believe they're going to get value for money, and others are going to wait and see.